today's Harry Potter chapter has, let's see if you can guess, what kind of magical creature do you think is in the video today, or in the chapter today? It's a dragon. Well done. And here we have a very, very patient dog, Angus, wearing his dragon costume for you, which is very sparkly, as you can see. He is a wonderful dragon. Can we hear your roar? Are you gonna do it? Go on. Speak. 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 Yeah. Excellent. So we've got our very scary dragon here who's going to go off and have some dragon adventures now. Off you go. Excellent. He is a very patient dog. Very, very patient indeed. Oh, there goes our dragon wing. All right, so we are going to start reading our chapter today, which is all about dragons and takes place mainly in Hagrid's hut, which is what we have here. Let's get started. Chapter 14, Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. Quirrell, however, must have been braver than they'd thought. In the weeks that followed, he did seem to be getting paler and thinner, but it didn't look as though he had cracked yet. Every time they passed the third-floor corridor, Harry, Ron, and Hermione would press their ears to the door to check that Fluffy was still growling inside. Snape was sweeping about in his usual bad temper, which surely meant that the stone was still safe. Whenever Harry passed Quirrell these days, he gave him a encouraging sort of smile, and Ron had started telling people off for laughing at Quirrell's stutter. Hermione, however, had more on her mind than the Sorcerer's Stone. She had started drawing up revision timetables and color-coding all of her notes. Harry and Ron wouldn't have minded, but she kept nagging them to do the same. Hermione, the exams are ages away. 10 weeks, Hermione snapped. That's not ages, that's like a second to Nicholas Flamel. But we're not 600 years old, Ron reminded her. Anyway, what are you revising for? You know it all. What am I revising for? Are you mad? You realize we need to pass these exams to get into second year. They're very important, and I should have started studying a month ago. I don't know what's gotten into me. Unfortunately, the teachers seem to be thinking along the same lines as Hermione. Before I turn the page, I want to show you this really cool picture of Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback, which is a type of dragon. They piled so much homework on them that the Easter holidays weren't nearly as much fun as the Christmas ones. It was hard to relax with Hermione next to you reciting the 12 uses of dragon's blood or practicing wand movements. Moaning and yawning, Harry and Ron spent most of their free time in the library with her, trying to get through all their extra work. I'll never remember this, Ron burst out one afternoon, throwing down his quill and looking longingly out of the library window. It was the first really fine day that they'd had in months. The sky was clear, forget-me-not blue, and there was a feeling in the air that summer was coming. Harry, who was looking up Dittany in the 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi book, didn't look up until he heard Ron say, Hagrid, what are you doing in the library? Hagrid shuffled into view, hiding something behind his back. He looked very out of place in his moleskin overcoat. Just looking, he said in a shifty voice that got their interest at once. And what are you lot up to? He suddenly looked suspicious. You're not still looking for that Nicholas Flamel, are you? Oh, we found out who he was ages ago, said Ron impressively. And we know that dog's got what that dog's guarding. It's the Sorcerer's... Shh! Hagrid looked around quickly to see if anyone was listening. Don't go shouting about it. What's the matter with you? There are a few things we wanted to ask you, as a matter of fact, said Harry. About what's guarding the stone apart from Fluff... Shh! said Hagrid again. "Listen, come to see me later. I'm not promising I'll tell you anything, mind, but don't go rabbiting about it in here. Students aren't supposed to know. They'll think I told you." "We'll see you later then," said Harry. Hagrid shuffled off. "What was he hiding behind his back?" said Hermione thoughtfully. "Do you think it had anything to do with the stone?" "I'm going to see what section he was in," said Ron, who'd had enough of working. He came back a minute later with a pile of books in his arms and slammed them down on the table. "Dragons," he whispered. Hagrid was looking up stuff about dragons. "Look at this. Dragon species of Great Britain and Ireland, from egg to inferno, a dragon keeper's guide." "Hagrid's always wanted a dragon. He told me so the first time I ever met him," said Harry. "But it's against our laws," said Ron. "Dragon breeding was outlawed by the Warlocks Convention of 1709. Everyone knows that. It's hard to stop Muggles noticing us if we keep dragons in our back gardens. Anyway, you can't tame dragons. It's dangerous. You should see the burns Charlie's got off the wild ones in Romania." Right, before I move on, let's have a look at this beautiful page. That's all about different dragon eggs. So we've got the first one is the Hungarian horntail, a Ukrainian ironbelly, Antipodean opal eye, a Swedish short snout, the Hebridean black, the Peruvian viper tooth, Chinese fireball, Romanian longhorn, Norwegian ridgeback, and the common Welsh green. You can see all the different eggs, shapes and sizes and colors and patterns here. No two are the same. Maybe that was a page out of one of the books that Hagrid was reading. "But there aren't wild dragons in Britain," said Harry. "Of course there are," said Ron. "Common Welsh green and Hebridean blacks. The Ministry of Magic has a job hushing them all up, I can tell you. Our lot have been trying to keep putting spells on Muggles who spotted them to make them forget." "So what on earth is Hagrid up to?" Hermione said. When they knocked on the door of their Gamekeepers Hut an hour later, they were surprised to see all the curtains were closed. Hagrid called, "Who is it?" before he let them in, and then shut the door quickly behind them. It was stiflingly hot inside. You can see the inside of his hut here. He's got a roaring fire, and the room really isn't very big. The walls are made out of stone, which keeps the heat in as well. He's also got his dog Fang here, his pink umbrella, which we know has something magical going on with it, and then all of his different pots and pans. In the movies, you can see cages of different animals that he's looking after inside his hut as well. I think I would really like to visit Hagrid's hut. Even though it was such a warm day, there was a blazing fire in the grate. Hagrid made them tea and offered them stoat sandwiches, which they refused. A stoat is a little bit like a weasel, not really a common thing to be eating. "So, you wanted to ask me something?" "Yes," said Harry. There was no point beating around the bush. "We were wondering if you could tell us what's guarding the Sorcerer's Stone apart from Fluffy." Hagrid frowned at him. "Of course I can't," he said. "Number 1, I don't know myself. Number 2, you know too much already, so I wouldn't tell you if I could. That stone's here for a reason, a good reason. It was almost stolen out of Gringotts. I suppose you've been working all that out? Beats me how you even know about Fluffy." "Oh, come on, Hagrid. You might not want to tell us, but you do know. You know everything that goes on around here," said Hermione in a warm, flattering voice. Hagrid's beard twitched, and they could tell he was smiling. "We only wondered who'd done the garden, really," Hermione went on. "We wondered who Dumbledore had trusted enough to help him, apart from you." Hagrid's chest swelled with these last words. Harry and Ron beamed at Hermione. "Well, I don't suppose it could hurt you to tell you that. Let's see. He borrowed Fluffy from me. Then some of the teachers did enchantments. Professor Sprout, Professor Flitwick, Professor McGonagall. He ticked them off in his fingers. Professor Quirrell, and Dumbledore himself did something, of course. Hang on, I forgot someone. Oh, yes, Professor Snape." Snape? Yeah, you're not still on about that, are you? Look, Snape helped protect the stone. He's not trying to steal it. Harry knew Ron and Hermione were thinking the same thing as he was. If Snape had been in on protecting the stone, he must have been easy for him to find out how the other teachers had guarded it too. He probably knew everything, except, it seemed, Quirrell's spell and how to get past Fluffy. You're the only one who knows how to get past Fluffy, aren't you, Hagrid? Said Harry anxiously. And you wouldn't tell anyone, would you? Not even the other teachers? Not a soul knows except me and Dumbledore, said Hagrid proudly. Oh, well, that's something, Harry muttered to the others. Hagrid, can we have a window open? I'm boiling. Can't, Harry, sorry, said Hagrid. Harry noticed him glance at the fire. Harry looked at it too. Hagrid, what's that? But he already knew what it was. In the very heart of the fire, underneath his kettle, was a huge black egg right in the fire. Ah, said Hagrid, fiddling nervously with his beard. That's, Where did you get it, Hagrid? Said Ron, crouching over the fire to get a closer look at the egg. It must have cost you a fortune. I won it, said Hagrid. Last night, I was down in the village having a few drinks and got into a game of cards with a stranger. I think he was quite glad to get rid of it, to be honest. What are you going to do with it when it hatches? Said Hermione. Well, I've been doing some reading, said Hagrid, pulling a large book from under his pillow. I got this out of the library. Dragon Breeding for Pleasure and Profit. It's a bit out of date, of course, but it's all in there. Keep the egg in the fire, 'cause their mothers breathe on 'em, you see, when it hatches. Feed it on a bucket of brandy mixed with chicken blood every half hour. And see here, how to recognize the different eggs. That was the page we saw earlier, wasn't it? What I got that here is a Norwegian Ridgeback. They're rare, them. He looked very pleased with himself, but Hermione didn't. Hagrid, you live in a wooden house, she said. But Hagrid wasn't listening. He was humming merrily as he stoked the fire. So now they had something else to worry about. What might happen to Hagrid if anybody found out he was hiding an illegal dragon in his hut? I wonder what it's like to have a peaceful life, Ron sighed, as evening after evening they struggled through all the extra homework they were getting. Hermione had now started making revision timetables for Harry and Ron, too. It was driving them mad. Then, one breakfast time, Hedwig brought Harry another note from Hagrid. He had written on it only 2 words. It's hatching. Ron wanted to skip herbology and go straight down to the hut. Hermione wouldn't hear of it. Hermione, how many times in our lives are we going to see a dragon hatching? We've got lessons. We'll get into trouble. And that's nothing compared to what Hagrid's going to be in when somebody finds out what he's doing. Be quiet, Harry whispered. Malfoy was only a few feet away, and he had stopped dead to listen. How much had he heard? Harry didn't like the look on Malfoy's face at all. Ron and Hermione argued all the way to herbology, and in the end, Hermione agreed to run down to Hagrid's with the other 2 during their morning break. When the bell sounded from the castle at the end of their lesson, the 3 of them dropped their trowels and at once hurried through the grounds to the edge of the forest. Hagrid greeted them, looking flushed and excited. It's nearly out! He ushered them inside. The egg was lying on a table. There were deep cracks in it. Something was moving inside. A funny clicking noise was coming from it. They all drew their chairs up to the table and watched with bated breath. All at once there was a scraping noise and the egg split open. The baby dragon flopped out onto the table. It wasn't exactly pretty, Harry thought. It looked a bit like a crumpled black umbrella. Its spiny legs were huge compared to its skinny jet body, and it had a long snout with wide nostrils, stubs of horns, and bulging orange eyes. It sneezed. A couple of sparks flew out of its snout. Oh, isn't he beautiful? Hagrid murmured. He reached out a hand to stroke the dragon's head. It snapped at its fingers, showing pointed fangs. Bless him. He knows. Look, he knows his mummy, said Hagrid. Hagrid, said Hermione, how fast do Norwegian Ridgebacks grow exactly? Hagrid was about to answer when the color suddenly drained from his face. He leapt to his feet and ran to the window. What's the matter? Someone was looking through the gap in that curtain. It's a kid, and he's running back up to the school. Harry bolted to the door and looked out. Even at a distance, there was no mistaking him. Malfoy had seen the dragon. Have a look. Something about the smile lurking on Malfoy's face during the lesson that next week made Harry, Ron, and Hermione very nervous. They spent most of their free time in Hagrid's darkened hut trying to reason with him. Just let it go, Harry urged. Set him free. I can't, said Hagrid. He's too little. He'll die. They looked at the dragon. It had grown 3 times in length in just a week. Smoke kept furling out of its nostrils. Hagrid hadn't been doing his gamekeeping duties because the dragon was keeping him so busy. There were empty brandy bottles and chicken feathers all over the floor. I've decided to call him Norbert, said Hagrid, looking at the dragon with misty eyes. He really knows me now. Watch. Norbert! Norbert! Where's Mummy? He's lost his marbles, Ron muttered in Harry's ear. Hagrid, said Harry loudly, give it 2 weeks and Norbert's going to be as long as your house. Malfoy could go to Dumbledore at any moment. Hagrid bit his lip. I know I can't keep him forever, but I just can't dump him. I just can't. Harry suddenly turned to Ron. Charlie, he said. You're losing it too, said Ron. I'm Ron, remember? No, Charlie, your brother. In Romania, studying dragons. We could send Norbert to him. Charlie can take care of him and then put him back in the wild. Oh, brilliant, said Ron. How about that, Hagrid? In the end, Hagrid agreed that they could send an owl to Charlie to ask him. The following week dragged by. Wednesday night found Hermione and Harry sitting alone in the common room long after everybody else had already gone to bed. The clock on the wall had just chimed midnight when the portrait hole burst open. Ron appeared out of nowhere as he pulled off Harry's invisibility cloak. He had been down at Hagrid's hut, helping him feed Norbert, who was now eating dead rats in a crate. It bit me, he said, showing them his hand, which was wrapped in a bloody handkerchief. I'm not going to be able to hold a quill for a week. I tell you, that dragon's the most horrible animal I have ever met. And by the way that Hagrid goes on about it, you'd think it was a fluffy little bunny rabbit. When it bit me, he told me off for frightening it. And when I left, he was singing it a lullaby. There was a tap on the dark window. Oh, it's Hedwig, said Harry, hurrying to let her in. She'll have Charlie's answer. So the 3 of them put their heads together and read the note. Oh, goodness. This picture is from the illustrated edition of Dragon Species of Great Britain and Ireland. It is a picture of a fully grown Norwegian Ridgeback dragon. Look how big it is. Those are chimneys on a roof. There's a window you can see as well on the roof where you can compare and see that this is a humongous animal. There's no way that Hagrid could keep it secret in his little hut that only has 2 rooms to it. Dear Ron, how are you? Thanks for the letter. I'd be glad to take the Norwegian Ridgeback, but it won't be easy getting him here. I think the best thing to do would be to send him over with some friends of mine who are coming to visit me next week. The trouble is, they mustn't be seen carrying an illegal dragon. Could you get the Ridgeback up to the tallest tower at midnight on Saturday? Then they can meet you there and take him away while it's still dark. Send me an answer as soon as possible. Love, Charlie." They looked at each other. "Well, we've got the invisibility cloak," said Harry. "It shouldn't be too difficult. I think the cloak's big enough to cover the two of us and Norbert." It was a mark of how bad the last week had been that the other two agreed with him straight away, anything to get rid of Norbert and Malfoy. But there was a hitch. By the next morning, Ron's bitten hand had swollen to twice the usual size. He didn't know whether it was safe to go to Madame Pomfrey. Would she recognize a dragon bite? By the afternoon, though, he had no choice. The cut had turned a nasty shade of green. It looked as if Norbert's fangs were poisonous. Harry and Hermione rushed up to the hospital wing at the end of the day to find Ron in a terrible state in bed. "Oh, it's not just my hand," he whispered, "although that feels like it's about to fall off. Malfoy told Madame Pomfrey he wanted to borrow one of my books so he could come and have a good laugh at me. He kept threatening to tell her what had really bit me. I've told her it was a dog, but I don't think she believes me. I shouldn't have hit him at the Quidditch match. That's why he's doing this." Harry and Hermione tried to calm Ron down. "It'll all be over at midnight on Saturday," said Hermione. But this didn't soothe Ron at all. On the contrary, he sat bolt upright and broke into a sweat. "Midnight on Saturday?" he said in a hoarse voice. "Oh no! Oh no! I just remembered. Charlie's letter is in the book that Malfoy took. Now he's going to know how we're getting rid of Norbert." Harry and Hermione didn't get a chance to answer. Madame Pomfrey came over at that moment and made them leave, saying that Ron needed to sleep. "It's too late to change the plan now," Harry told Hermione. "We haven't got time to send Charlie another owl, and this could be our only chance to get rid of Norbert. We'll just have to risk it. We have got the invisibility cloak. Malfoy doesn't know about that." They found Fang the boarhound. That's Fang here. You can see sitting by Hagrid's chair. They found Fang the boarhound sitting outside with a bandaged tail when they went to tell Hagrid, who opened his window to talk to them. "Oh, I won't let you in," he puffed. "Norbert's at a tricky stage. Nothing I can't handle." When they told him about Charlie's letter, his eyes filled with tears, although that might have been because Norbert had just bitten him on the leg. "Oh, well, it's all right. He's only got my boot. Just playing. He's only a baby after all." The baby banged its tail on the wall, making the windows rattle. Harry and Hermione walked back to the castle, feeling that Saturday couldn't come quick enough. Here's the picture of Fang with his bandaged tail, which is probably from the dragon biting him as well. They wouldn't have felt sorry for Hagrid when the time came for him to say goodbye to Norbert if they hadn't been so worried about what they had to do. It was very dark and cloudy night, and they were a bit late arriving to Hagrid's hut because they had to wait for Peeves to get out of their way in the entrance hall, who'd been playing a game of tennis against the wall. Hagrid had Norbert packed and ready in a larger crate. "He's got lots of rats and some brandy from the journey," said Hagrid in a muffled voice, "and I've packed his teddy bear in case he gets lonely." From inside the crate came a ripping noise that sounded to Harry as though the teddy was having his head torn off. "Oh, bye-bye, Norbert," Hagrid sobbed, as Harry and Hermione covered the crate with the invisibility cloak and stepped underneath it themselves. "Mummy will never forget you." How they managed to get the crate back up to the castle they never knew. Midnight ticked nearer as they heaved Norbert up the marble staircase in the entrance hall and along the dark corridors. Up another staircase, then another. Even one of Harry's shortcuts didn't make the work any easier. "Nearly there," Harry panted as they reached the corridor beneath the tallest tower. Then there was a sudden movement ahead of them, making them almost drop the crate. Forgetting that they were already invisible, they shrank into the shadows, staring at the dark outlines of two people grappling with each other 10 feet away. A lamp flared. Professor McGonagall, in a tartan dressing gown and a hairnet, had Malfoy by the ear. "Detention!" she shouted, "and 20 points from Slytherin! Wandering around in the middle of the night! How dare you!" You don't understand, Professor. Harry Potter's coming and he has a dragon. What utter rubbish. How dare you tell such lies? Come on. I shall see Professor Snape about you, Malfoy. The steep spiral staircase up to the top of the tower seemed the easiest thing in the world after that. Not until they stepped out into the cold night air did they throw off the cloak, glad to be able to breathe properly again. Hermione did a sort of jig. Malfoy's got detention. I could sing. Don't, Harry advised her. Chuckling about Malfoy, they waited, Norbert thrashing about in his crate. About 10 minutes later, 4 broomsticks came swooping down out of the darkness. There's a beautiful picture of this here. I'll go in a little closer so you can see it. Charlie's friends were a cheery bunch. They showed Harry and Hermione the harness they'd rigged up so they could suspend Norbert in between them. They all helped buckle Norbert safely into it, and then Harry and Hermione shook hands with the others and thanked them very much. At last, Norbert was gone. They slipped back down the spiral staircase, their hearts as light as their hands, now that Norbert was off. No more dragon, Malfoy in detention. What could spoil their happiness? The answer to that was waiting at the foot of the stairs. As they stepped into the corridor, Filch's face loomed suddenly out of the darkness. Well, 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 he whispered. We are in trouble. They left the invisibility cloak at the top of the tower. Oh dear. That is the end of our chapter, and it sounds like our 3 main characters might be in detention for a little while after this. All right, that's all for today. I hope you'd enjoyed joining me in Hagrid's hut and meeting our dragon at the start of the chapter. Bye!